Hey, my friend, welcome back to the Wealthy Coach Podcast. I'm your host, Kendra Perry. Very excited to be with you here today. And I'm going to talk a little bit about my experience running Facebook ads. It has been quite the journey. It has been a long journey. It's been full of a lot of money wasted and a lot of money made. And the story has a happy ending. But I just got my year-end bookkeeping or accounting report back, just about a few weeks ago or so. So my year-end runs August 1st to July 31st. That is my corporate year-end for my company, K Perry Media Inc. And so I don't run from January to December. So that's why it's always a little bit confusing. But it was a pretty amazing report. And as you know, if you've been following me or on this podcast, I spent the entire or the great majority of my last year in business from August 1st to July 31st being pregnant and having a baby. So really, there was only I guess 2 months where that wasn't happening. And so I ended up doing very well with this year end. I'm going to talk about that more when I do my year in review, which will be coming up in just a couple weeks on the podcast. I'll be going through all the numbers and what I did and what I didn't do and what I could have improved on and all that stuff. But it was crazy because I did really well. I increased my revenue significantly, and I sort of did it without realizing it because I was honestly really focused on other things. As I've talked about on the podcast, I did not feel great in pregnancy. I was miserable. I literally hated it. Will never do it again. And and then I had a baby, so my time and my focus was just doing other things. I probably worked less than I've ever worked, and I made the most money that I've ever made. And honestly, a big part of that was all the advertising efforts that I did. And when I looked at my marketing expenses, typically I look at my reports monthly, but to be fully transparent, over the last year, I just really haven't been looking at them because, again, I've just been distracted by other things, not feeling great. I honestly just was in a mood of just like, whatever, it's going to be fine. Whatever money I make, I'm good. So I wasn't really paying attention to my reports. Now I get Stripe notifications. It's the only push notification that I get on my phone besides calendar reminders because I like to see when sales come in. So I check my Stripe report every now and then, but it's not inclusive because we get some money coming in through PayPal, we get some affiliate commission coming in other ways, and I get paid through some affiliates through Wise. So there's always sort of like additional income that's not accounted for in Stripe. But I knew I was doing well. I just didn't realize how well. And when I looked at my expenses, I was like, interesting. I spent 123,000 on Facebook ads basically in the past year. So from, I believe it was from August 1st to July 31st, I spent $120,000 on ads. And I was like, this is a really big reason why my business really took off. And it wasn't just running of the Facebook ads, it was actually really mastering them, really committing to learning them, understanding them, and finding the right strategy. Because truthfully, I've been running ads on and off in my business pretty much since I started. I remember joining this little membership, and I believe it was pretty early on in my business. It was probably the first year, and they got us going on Facebook ads right away. And so I always ran them with a relatively small budget on and off. I went through phases where I ran them more and then I ran them less, but I never really ran them consistently, at least when I was doing health coaching. And really, the majority of my growth in the health coaching space was organic marketing, through social media, through interviews, through, referrals, connections, collaborations, that sort of thing. I was primarily organic marketing, and then I'd get some stuff through Facebook ads, but I was never spending that much money. And again, I was never really running them consistently, but I was always dabbling in them because I always knew that my time was really valuable. And obviously, like, organic marketing works. I mean, it's much harder these days. It's a lot harder because there's a lot more noise on social media. There's a lot more competition. So getting started on social media at this time is a lot harder than it used to be. There was a lot less competition when I was doing organic marketing. But to do well in organic marketing, you have to give a lot of your time. And you have to kind of play the game, the algorithm game, and it's always changing and things that were working stop working, and you always kind of feel like you're fighting this losing battle. I always have felt that about organic marketing, even though I grew a multiple six-figure company using organic marketing. But I just always felt like I was kind of in this rat race. So I was always interested in ads and I always wanted to be better at ads because to me it felt like, well, if I my ads are generating all these leads, if they're growing my email list, then I don't have to do as much for organic marketing. It doesn't mean I need to do nothing. I think organic marketing is really important. It's very important to business growth, but when we run ads, we don't have to fully focus on it or put, all our hopes and dreams on whether or not an Instagram post is going to go viral, right? So when I moved into the B2B space in 2019, so this is when I really transitioned from health coaching into helping health coaches with their business. This is really when I learned to have had a true passionate for business and marketing and just really helping people succeed in their business. I was just finding, a lot more fulfillment in that. And truthfully, I've always worked with practitioners from the very, very beginning of my business. And I've talked about this before, but generally, like when I started my business was when I actually started working for functional diagnostic nutrition. I went through their certification program. I did very well in the program. They posted for a course mentor. I applied and I ended up getting the position. And that's actually what allowed me to officially start my business because up until that point, I had been working in forestry. And in forestry, at least in British Columbia, where we have all these big mountains and you can't like drive up logging roads in the winter because they're too steep and full of snow. And so you get laid off when the snow comes. So typically at the end of October, and then you start up again in April. So you get laid off for the winter and you can collect unemployment insurance. So I was on unemployment insurance and I was filing these reports and I was getting like, I think it was like $2,000 a month on unemployment. So, at the time it was just enough. This was also like, I don't know, 15 years ago. So we weren't in this cost of living crisis. Like my rent was like $300 a month versus, what people pay for rent now, which is probably in the thousands, God knows. And I was like, okay, like I'm getting this $2,000 paycheck every single month. And how do I just start replacing this income in my business? Because when you're on unemployment, you can't be making your own money. So it's like this kind of awkward balancing act. It's like, when do I stop filling out these reports and start going all in on my business? And when I got the job working part-time for functional diagnostic nutrition, it was about 20 hours a week ish. And they were paying me, I believe it was like $25 an hour, maybe $30 an hour US. So with the conversion into Canadian, it was almost $40 an hour, which to me at that time was like wild because I was making about $25 an hour Canadian in forestry. And now I was going to be making $40 an hour US. And I was like, it was amazing because basically working part-time for FDN was basically replacing my full-time 50-hour a week forestry job income. It was just like, this is so great. So that is what allowed me to start my business. So I started my business simultaneously as I started working as a course mentor for FDN, and I was working with coaches and practitioners. So right off the bat, and I stayed working with that company for, I believe, just under 4 years. I was a course mentor. I became a clinical advisor for HTMA at one point, and then I developed and ran their AFDNP membership, which is their postgraduate membership. So I was always working with practitioners. And so when I stopped working for that company and I was just working with my own health clients, like I felt kind of a hole. Like I felt a bit empty because I was like, oh, I really missed working with practitioners. And so that's, eventually when I realized, well, I think I'm meant to work with coaches and practitioners. So I made that jump. Anyways, I've gone on a bit of a tangent here. So anyways, when I moved over into the B2B space and I, basically was starting from not complete scratch, I had people following me. I had, a bit of, connection through the FDN world and practitioners I'd worked with. So I wasn't starting from scratch. I'd also learned a ton about business. So I was able to transition that over into kind of the new side of the business. But I really wanted to get into running ads because I didn't want to have to, spend years and years building the audience like I did with my B2C audience, with my health coaching audience. So I started running ads. But the problem is in the B2B space, and when I say B2B, I mean business to business. The problem is that advertising is a lot more expensive. sometimes like 10 times more expensive, just because it's a more competitive space, right? There's more people in that space. Also, when you're marketing to business owners, they're a little bit more savvy. They kind of know what you're doing, right? If I were to sign up for a free webinar, I would know exactly what was going on. I would know, there's a good chance I would be familiar with the webinar script that they're using. I would know exactly when they're going to pitch. I would recognize the value stack. I would know that they're going to give me a discount, but I could probably get it again if I waited for their live launch, right? So you're a little bit more savvy. So it's just more expensive to market to other businesses, right? And sometimes as much as 10 times. Now, that's good news for B2C, because in the health coaching space, you can still get really inexpensive leads, right? You can still advertise very cheaply, which is great. So everything I learned, well, it worked well in the B2C space. It didn't really translate over into B2B just because it was a much more competitive market. So this began my journey of working with various ads agencies, and most were not great experiences. I was paying a lot of money. I was paying a lot of money for leads. I wasn't getting results. I felt like I was just throwing money into a black hole. Okay. And so in 2021, I spent $40,000 on ads with zero return on investment. And I was like really frustrated because my business was doing really well. I've always done really well with organic marketing. My business has always grown really well organically. So I was making really good money. So I could afford that $40,000, but it doesn't mean that I wanted to spend. No one wants to spend $40,000 on basically nothing. Just give $40,000 to Mark Zuckerberg and be like, cool, right? So I was really, really frustrated. So I sort of at this point, I was like, okay, I don't want to work with ads agencies anymore. And at this point, I was actually in Rick Mulready's mastermind called Accelerator. And Rick's an ads expert. And there was a Quajo who's also an ads expert who was a coach in the program. And I was like, you know what? I have the support to figure this out on my own. And I bumbled around and I struggled some more. And I even kind of broke down and brought on another ads agency for 2 months, realized they were terrible. They were like, oh, your lead cost is $90, $90 per lead, $90 per lead. So I was paying $90 for one person to come to my email list who was going to ultimately probably unsubscribe. And I was like, no, this is not okay. And ultimately, I ended up hiring a colleague who I met through Rick's mastermind. His name's Zach Spuckler. He's amazing. He's an ads expert. And I started consulting with him and really started to commit to actually learning ads, to understanding them, to understanding the technical side of them, to like what was actually going on, to understand the strategy. And ultimately, that is what really helped my ads work, right? So I started running my ads consistently on my own. In early 2022, I had that weak moment with the ads agency where I brought them in and realized, like, oh my God, I know more than these people do. And then in October 2023, I fired the agency and I started 100% going all in on my own. And at this point, this is when I hired Zach and I really started to learn about them and feel good about them. And I was like, okay, I'm really going to start pushing money behind this. And the nice thing about this is one of the ads funnels that I was running was to an evergreen funnel. And so the nice thing about running ads to an evergreen funnel, where the sale happens pretty quickly, right? It's like we run ads to the webinar. The webinar, sells the program on a discount. Is it's what's the word I'm looking for? The sale happens quicker, so it's much easier to track return on investment versus running like lead generation ads, right? Where the sale might not happen for 6 months to a year because you're just using them to build your list. Still very effective. That's also a strategy that I do. But with my program, HTMA Expert, and if you're not familiar with this one, this is a course that I have that teaches practitioners and coaches how to interpret and utilize hair tissue mineral analysis. It's a very kind of, I say obscure, but I think it's become way more popular. There's definitely a lot more courses popping up. A lot of people are getting turned on to vitamins and minerals. But when I launched the course in 2019, there was very few people doing it and no one was teaching clinical protocols. Anyways, the reason why you may have not really heard me speak about this program or HTMA is because I don't really talk about it. It's kind of something that's always kind of gone on in the background. It's never been my primary focus. A big part of that is because I stopped practicing clinically in 2019. And part of me was just going to let the course go because I was like, well, I'm not really the best person to teach this because I'm not really practicing clinically. I still run HTMA on myself, my family. I often run it on my friends. I don't charge people. It's just kind of something I, do for friends, every now and then because I enjoy it. But, I'm not working with lots of clients, but the problem is the course always did really well without me putting very little effort into it or very much effort at all. And so eventually I was like, okay, I can still run this course. I just need to get, experienced practitioners, people who do this in their clinical practice to come in and coach in the program. And that's going to be a better fit for my students. But I never really wanted to market it. And there was a while, and I believe it was in 2019, where I was trying to do both. So I was marketing the business side of my business, where we were doing business coaching. And then I was marketing HTMA on the other side. I had certain platforms that were dedicated to the business stuff, certain platforms that were dedicated to the HTMA stuff. And I quickly realized how exhausting it is to promote two separate programs, right? And this is a big reason why I tell people to focus on one. The only reason I'm able to have two programs is because the other one is basically run for me because I've sort of pulled myself out of it. I have other people coaching in it for me. And I have this evergreen funnel that just kind of works. Okay. So anyways, so I got an evergreen funnel set up for this program because at that point I wasn't doing anything to market it. And it was literally just a course on my website and we'd bring in like, between 2 and 5 sales a month with zero marketing. I didn't have people on my email list for it. I wasn't sending it, wasn't creating any content, like no podcasts, no emails, no social media. I wasn't live launching it. It was just kind of trickling in sales. And it kind of was like, if this is trickling in like, 2 to 5 sales a month, making me anywhere, several $1,000s a month without me doing anything, what would happen if I actually found a way to market it? But I knew I didn't have the bandwidth. I'm a lifestyle entrepreneur. I don't want to work more. I like working less. And I know I could have a multi 7-figure business if I wanted to. I am someone who has the drive and the skill for that, but I don't because I just don't want work that much. I don't want a big team. I don't want all these things that would be required of having that sort of business. So I was like, okay, I need to get something set up that is automated. And I went through this program called the Circuit Sales System. It's a really, really great program. It worked really well for my program, but I don't think it would work for all types of programs, but it did work well for my program. And essentially, it's just a never ending evergreen funnel, meaning that people watch a free webinar or video. They get sold the program, they get offered a one-time only discount, and then they go into this like never-ending email sequence that just kind of loops them forever, and they get resold the program every few months. And so they're in it forever till either they buy or they unsubscribe, essentially. Love it. Works really well for this program, but I don't think it would work well for all programs, and I would never set it up for my other side of the business. But anyways, so I started running ads to that because when I first launched this funnel, I just kind of let it run organically and it literally took off. We made so many sales just by launching this funnel without any promotion. It was crazy. So, 6 months later, I was making lots of, bringing in lots of students, helping lots of people through that program. I was like, well, what if I put ads behind this? So that's where we started running ads to the webinar. And we have maintained an average of 3 times return on investment since I started those ads. And it was probably almost exactly a year ago to the day of this recording in November. Okay. It's mid-November right now. So 3 times return on investment means that for every dollar I spend, I get 3 in return. How awesome is that? Right? If I said to you, for every dollar you give me, I'll give you 3 in return, you'd say, yes, I'll do that all day, every day. All day, every day, right? So we've been able to maintain that return on ad spend. And then on the other side of my business, so I have a little bit of a different strategy for the HCA side of the business, so Health Coach Accelerator. We do lead generation ads and we do launch ads, meaning that we run ads to a free guide to build the email list. And then we, invite them to an event. Right now, the 2 primary events that I run, I have a workshop that I run, and then I have a 3-day challenge that I run. Those have been working really well for me. Essentially, what I did was I took my webinar and I just sort of repurposed them into events that were just a little bit more interactive, that seemed to work a little better for my audience. And so what we do is we run ads to the guide, we invite them to the event, and then we also run ads to the launch, right? So we run ads directly to the challenge or directly to the workshop. Now, typically, those people don't typically buy on that first launch. So we run ads to the launch, they'll come into the challenge through the ads, but they don't typically buy then. They might buy at a later date. They typically might buy at the next launch or the launch after that. But the reason we do this is because I think it's a really nice touch point to bring people in and have them right off the bat spend like 3 days with me or spend an entire 90 minutes with me on a workshop that delivers like really high value. So that seems to work as a good nurture point for those people, but I don't usually expect them to buy. Now, in the past, that was a really good strategy to get people to buy. Just doesn't really work anymore just because people have more options, they have choice, people are more hesitant, right? People have less money, they have less, spendable income because of the cost of living crisis. And yeah, people just need a bit more time to make sure you're not a scammer because people have been burned before. At this point, a lot of the people who you're trying to sell to have already been in programs. They've already invested in something that didn't work. So they're very hesitant to invest in something else. So that's why I love to bring people in and really start things off with just providing lots of value and showing them my personality and really getting to hang out in that really nice, like interactive container, which I really, really like. Okay. So not only did this, the Facebook ads that I spent, not only did it blow up my income, right, with on the HTMA side of the business, but on the HCA side of the business, it actually blew up my live launches, right? Now, like I said, a lot of those people didn't buy, but we brought in a lot of organic people. And there's something about just having more people in a live event that kind of brings up the energy, right? And then those people that didn't buy on the first launch often bought on the next launch or the next event, something like that. And this is really amazing because I always talk about how your email list growth is very much correlated with your success in business. I really believe that. Obviously, we don't want to just do mindless growth. We want to make sure that we are building our email list full of the people of whom we want to work with, right? The type of person who has the problem that we help them solve. It has to be targeted, it has to be aligned. We don't just want a list of random people. But it's so interesting because essentially, I increased my revenue. So in my tax year from August 1st, 2023 to July 31st, 2024, which is my tax year for my corporation, I increased my revenue by 48%. So essentially, I doubled my revenue and I also basically doubled my profit. Okay. Now I'm going to talk a little bit more about this in the episode I do for my year in review. But a lot of times when people increase revenue, their profit margins start to shrink because they have to hire more people, they have to spend more money. But the cool thing about what we do with online programs is our profit margin can grow at the same time that our revenue grows, right? So I more than doubled my revenue, or almost doubled, not more than, sorry, I almost doubled my revenue, 48%, 50% would have been doubled. And I almost doubled my profit as well. And at the same time that that happened, my list growth almost doubled. So in October 2023, I had 6244 on my email list. So 6,244 people. At the time of this recording, November, I have 11,393. So all not quite doubled, but almost, right? And so I really connect those two because I've seen that consistently. As my list size grows, so does my business, right? I've, pumped all these money into ads. So a lot of that growth is coming from ads. I would not have been able to grow like that with organic. So typically we bring in between 800 and 1,000 new leads every month. Okay. Typically 100 to 200 of those are organic. So coming from some sort of organic means. So you can see the big difference, right? Obviously, I'm bringing in a lot more people for ads, right? It's kind of amazing, right? I really, really went all in on Facebook ads, committed to learning them, spent a good amount of money. I doubled my list size, and ultimately that led to me almost doubling my revenue and having my biggest year in business ever. Well, I literally worked the least, didn't even pay attention, was pregnant, and was on mat leave for a good portion of that. So, again, I'm not saying this to brag, but I am really fucking proud of myself. I'm really fucking proud of myself because there's just not something that a lot of people can say. And I just can't help but just think back to me when I was just starting my business in 2015, 2014. I was just kind of starting to work with people. And I remember all like the tears and how frustrated I was and how many failures I had and how many times I wanted to give up, but I was just so determined to get to where I am now. And I honestly never really thought I would get here. Um, but I did. And, I think that's a testament to just sticking with something. This is my 11th year in business. It's not my first rodeo. I did not experience overnight success. It's been a slog. And now I'm in a really good place with my business. I have trust in my business, in myself. Like I don't worry about revenue. I know that, even though if we're in a dip, it's okay. It's probably going to be better next month or the month after. It's an amazing place to be, but yeah, it was a really hard road to get here. So, as much as I don't want to brag. I mean, it's a pretty big accomplishment. So I am proud of myself. Now, the reason why I wanted to make this episode is because there is so much resistance to running ads. And I come across this in my students, I come across this in my audience. People just, they're afraid to spend the money. But advertising is one of the best things you can actually invest your money in. Now, you can fuck it up, right? I told you I spent $40,000 one year, zero ROI, but it's because I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't commit to learning it, and I entrusted my money into third parties, right? There is a big temptation to hire ads agencies or an ads manager. They're very expensive. You are probably not going to get someone to run your ads who actually knows what they're doing for less than 10, maybe $1,000 to $1,500 a month. A good one will typically charge $2,500 a month. This is US. And so when I was having an ads manager that was charging me $2,500 a month, I can't do the math, but that is like, what is that? Like 30,000 a year. That's US and Canadian dollars. That's probably close to $45,000 a year. And then obviously all the money that I was pumping into ads. So when you learn to run your own ads, you will literally save yourself tens of thousands of dollars. You are giving yourself a raise, right? And what I will say is learning ads is frustrating. I have coach so many people through learning ads, right? And watch people stumble and feel frustrated. I know it. I've been there too. Learning ads is expensive. Facebook ads is a language that no one fully understands. Like, I don't know why they make it so fucking hard, but yeah, it's very frustrating. And if you commit to learning ads, you will go through that frustration. But once you get it and you get things set up, the maintenance of it is very minor. Like maybe I spend 30 minutes a week managing my ads, right? And then I'm saving myself $2,500 a month. Okay. And it can actually be fun, especially when you start to see list growth and you start to get more sales, you start to see your business growth, then running ads can be really fun. Okay. And this is the thing, a lack of lead generation will keep you stuck in your business and it will keep you re-promoting your offer over and over and over to the same audience, right? If your list size only grew by 200 people in the past year, you're just promoting because a bunch of those people are unsubscribing. So if we are just promoting to the same people over and over, this is what will keep you stuck, right? People do not focus enough on list growth and they put all their effort into social media. And then they rely on social media to grow their list, which for most of us doesn't grow our list fast enough, right? So ads are really critical to the success of a business. And yes, you can still run a business organically, organic only. People still do it, but it requires a lot of your effort and time. You really got to play the algorithm game, which personally I have no interest in playing. So if you want to be successful at running ads, what you need, well, first off, you need a niche because you need to know who to target, right? Good ads have a very specific niche. They're targeting a very specific person, and we need that correct targeting. So we need to find the right audiences. But really, it's about the commitment to learning it and knowing that it's going to feel really, really overwhelming and frustrating. You're going to get really frustrated when you try to learn ads in the beginning. Okay. Um, but you have to stick with it. We need to have copy and creative and a willingness to test, right? When you run ads, most of your ads won't perform, but there'll be a few that do. And that's ultimately the ones that you pump your money behind. And then we need a really good strategy for what to do with those people once they come onto our email list, because You can't just get someone to your list and never talk to them again. You want a good nurture sequence in place, right? You want to loop people into your ecosystem, get them watching your YouTube channel, listening to your podcast. You want to be sending them weekly emails. You want to be building that relationship, because just because someone joined your list doesn't mean they're going to stay on your list, and doesn't mean that they're going to remember who you are when you launch to them 3 months later, but have never sent them an email, right? And I think live launching plays a really important role in helping people get off the fence with a personal touch. Everyone really wants like automated evergreen. And yes, it can work. And in certain spaces at certain price points, it will. But I believe in health and wellness and coaching. I really think we need a little bit more of a personal touch. I actually think we need to be willing to interact with people and allow people to get to know us, because there is more buyer hesitancy, not because people have less, spendable, I don't know if that's a word, income, but also because people have been burned, right? So these hands-off businesses where we just push people through an evergreen funnel and never speak with them and expect them to buy, I think are going to be working less and less, because humans want humans. All right. This episode took a few turns. I wasn't expecting to speak so much, but I don't really script these episodes. I just kind of let them run. So I hope that was helpful. I hope that inspires you to get your first set of Facebook ads running and watch those leads come onto your list. All right, my friend, I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Wealthy Coach Podcast. I will see you next Monday, same time, same place, where I help you become wealthy AF.